Rent.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Give Me Rent. This is Noah, and I'm joined here again by Dylan.
What's up, guys?
Today, we're going to give you our thoughts on Tron Ares. And, we were very excited for this release, and we had a very interesting time seeing this film the other day. We went to the Grove in LA, and we had a special guest show up to our theater to start our viewing. Jared Leto himself showed up at the beginning of this, which was I will say, it was an interesting vibe when he came into that theater. I will say, luckily, we had a packed show.
We did have a packed showing. So
it
was
was
good to see that.
a packed IMAX theater opening night. I mean,
Because I've seen he did this for multiple theaters, and he would even go into theaters that were empty. I mean, good on him for doing that too. Because our theater was completely packed to the brim, so it's like you expect to see him go to that kind of theater. And he had said in his little speech he gave us that was his hometown theater, and that was one of his reasons for going to the Grove and actually,
Listen, it was very interesting to see Dr. Michael Morbius himself show up
in the flesh.
Kind
of wild.
I actually, talking about Leto, I just, moving aside from him just being there, it was cool to see and all that, and then the film started. Like, we can get into that. Immediately in this film, I can confirm, Nine Inch Nails did what they needed to do.
Yeah, it's very apparent, 2-3 scenes in, wow, like the music is going to dictate this film and the visuals as well. Let's not, take that out aside as well. But yeah, speaking about Nine Inch Nails, they, following Daft Punk was no small feat, and I think they really did a good job. And it's pretty similar too. I really think they did take their own approach to it and make it. It's a Nine Inch Nails.
Well, it's interesting,
approach to Tron as opposed to them trying to replicate anything.
Of course, and as we've said on this channel, we listened to the score before seeing this film. We're huge Tron fans. We're huge fans of what Daft Punk did. Obviously, what Wendy Carlos did as well with the original Tron. Amazing stuff. This is a franchise that definitely is known for its music, amongst other things as well. But, I will say, seeing the film the score accompanied with the film finally, it elevated it.
Yeah.
It was very well done. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say it matched Daft Punk, but I could definitely see people, liking this aesthetic, in this film better and thinking the music, it lends that. It goes along with that. Maybe they like Nine Inch Nails style a little bit better.
Yeah, before we even get into like our overall thoughts on the film itself, we were really thinking about the music and how we were a little worried that there was some lyrical music in there, how that would actually affect the film and how that would be placed into the scenes. But I will say, like, even those songs in the movie really worked for me in the scenes that they were in. I actually really
I think my favorite sequence in this movie had a lyrical song in it.
Yeah.
And I when I first listened to this specific song without seeing the movie, it was not my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
I wasn't re-listening to it too much. But now I have it on repeat. I think that scene really, really elevated it.
Mm-hmm.
But, the score, it helped make this film, 10 times better, I'd even say.
But let's
Let's
talk about
overall thoughts on what Ares brought to, the story of this franchise.
Well, it's funny because the wait for this has really made me feel like I really do think I'm in the gang now. I am a true Tron fan because we waited 15 years for a new movie release, which isn't as long as the first one, The Legacy, but still. 15 years, guys. We waited quite a long time
the difference
to see a sequel.
I think the big difference is that we know Disney tried to get a sequel going immediately following Legacy.
And it still took 15 years.
And it still took them 15 years. So let's actually get back to the Leto of it all. Because we've talked about it before, in our Tron current state video. But, with a little bit more perspective and after seeing the film, we know this. I don't think this movie would exist without Jared Leto.
It generally wouldn't. So it's like all the people really having the gripes of Leto being in it. Obviously, person aside, different. But acting, just purely off of his acting in the movie, I thought he did a fine job. I was not distracted by anything. I don't think some people were saying it's flat. I think I actually enjoyed his character. I thought it was a really interesting character.
I wasn't particularly blown away.
Yes.
But even, same thing goes for the entire film. But, like, with his performance, I expected it to be just so subpar.
Let's say it right now, though. There's really only one stellar performance in this entire franchise over the 3 movies. And in my opinion, and that's Flynn in Legacy. Not even Flynn in the first movie. I think Flynn in Legacy, Jeff Bridges really brought something to that. Not even Clue, just Flynn himself.
But I will say, even though I said my thoughts on Sam Flynn in the last video, but I 100% pick, for people that are curious, Sam Flynn is 100% a way better of a character than Ares, in my opinion at least. But also, that being said, it's a very different character because, this movie is following a program that is becoming human. And yeah, that story beat is something we've seen before. This movie, it doesn't bring anything new to the table, with that. But I will say I was decently surprised with some of the concepts and the story beats they took, this universe in.
Yeah.
One interesting thing I will say, and I kind of expected it always, but this movie kind of feels like a spinoff in some areas. It does. And
it's not as it's somewhat grand, but I wouldn't say it's as grand as Legacy gets. And it does. It is kind of a spin-off in a sense that it's a new character, kind of a new angle into this world. We're not following the Flynns anymore. This is a different kind of story. I see what you're saying there. It's still a Tron movie at the end of the day. Like expensive, visuals are there, music's there.
Yeah.
But when you're saying it feels like a spinoff, story wise, in some beats, I kind of get what you're saying when you say.
We don't even fully know if without giving away too much with Kevin Flynn's appearance in this movie. Don't exactly know if it was really Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, it's a little ambiguous. I actually like that scene, but before we continue the rest of the review, I just want to know your overall thoughts. Like, were you satisfied? Were there negatives?
So I will say this: I've seen the film once now in IMAX, and I definitely want to go again because I will say I think one big positive I have to mention is that I expected it possibly to be a train wreck.
Yeah,
I can wholeheartedly say it's not that.
Yeah,
I think there is a clear abundance of people being too harsh on this film, and I think it's mainly because of Leto. But I have seen people react to this film negatively.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it doesn't do anything crazy. The script is weak. 100%.
Yeah.
I think.
But it's not like the script for the first two movies were.
But it's not. But I will say, out of the three films, this is the weakest script.
Yes, I do. There's some annoying lines in there, but I also think, for me, conceptually, I still think it really fits well into the Tron narrative, and it doesn't do anything narratively that really.
But I will say, no, you're right, because I was pleasantly surprised with how much it added to the lore while also respecting it.
Yeah.
Because one thing that's great about this franchise, we said it before, is that each movie is so distinct. 100%. They're not like each other, but they do harken back to each other. They do reference each other. There's obviously a lot of love in this movie for the original Tron.
Yeah.
More so than Legacy, I will say.
I would actually go as far to say that this is more a sequel to that original film than Tron Legacy itself. It definitely references Legacy, and Legacy is there. You could feel it. But it feels like more of a spiritual sequel to that original.
But what's also interesting, movie. Something that kind of crossed my mind, I think a lot of Tron fans might feel this way as well. It's interesting, this franchise now, because it looks like you kind of do have two straight sequels to the first Tron. Legacy is Flynn's sequel.
Yeah.
And this movie, Ares, is the Dillinger sequel.
Yeah.
But I will say they also did retcon a little bit of how the Dillinger-Flynn story works. I didn't know how to fully feel about that, Dillinger systems being a thing now instead of just all being encompassed by NCOM. Yeah.
I think, I don't want to get too nitpicky because, they didn't do an amazing job explaining where that really came from, all that. But I do like the dichotomy between Dillinger and NCOM in this
100%.
movie.
I still enjoyed how it continued that story with the Dillingers and the Flynns, but it's something, it turned from, just like a family type battle to more of a corporate thing now, which is, it's fascinating, but that is a complete retcon because as we know, in 2010's Legacy, we had Cillian Murphy. He played a Dillinger who was still on the board at NCOM. I guess you could sort of explain this, maybe. Maybe the producers of Tron do have an idea how this kind of all makes sense. But I was definitely taken back by that. I thought it was interesting to establish that Dillinger systems have been around for decades.
Yeah. I think that's a very nitpicky thing to look at. Like, that could have just been a throwaway line.
But in the end of the day, I'm a huge fan of this franchise. It's definitely something I noticed. I just wanted to point that out. I mean, right away we see Ares look at his disc, or very early on in the film, and it says Dillinger Systems. So it started thinking. I was like, how long have they been around? They touch upon that. So it's it's things that the movie does touch upon.
Yeah. Before we get into like true spoilers, I do want to say I think this just deserves to be seen in IMAX. Like, even if you're not a Tron fan, like, this movie just, like, this was one of my favorite IMAX releases in a while, purely because of the visuals and the music. But also, like, I like the narrative. I actually think this has a really interesting story. And it's a little safer, I would say, than especially Legacy. It's a little safer in its approach. but I still think it has new conceptual stuff to the franchise that I welcomed. I thought it was
something
thought
that
there
I
was some
do
cool
love
things
when
here.
watching, especially Legacy, but now I can say this one had it as well, is that when I'm watching these films, it doesn't feel like I'm watching a straight Disney flick.
Yeah, it's still
such a black sheep.
It's definitely adding to the fact that it's Disney's black sheep. Because I actually thought this was the best Disney Studios release I've seen in quite some time.
Definitely, I mean, they own so much.
You don't really
But for a
feel
movie starting with Walt Disney
you don't really
Studios,
feel their
I
footprint
almost
on this
agree.
though. You don't feel that they had their hands on this one a lot. And I would honestly hearken
You're
that to
probably right. You're probably right.
yeah, I'd probably
well-
hearken that to the fact that they probably really weren't overseeing this too much. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I wasn't there.
Yeah, you know.
But I would assume that compared to their other franchises like Marvel and Star Wars, they were not looking so closely into this one as much as they do their other franchises, which kind of let the filmmakers have a little bit more freedom.
Well, again, this took so long to make.
Yeah.
And, it started as Tron Ascension. I don't know exactly when Ares,
Became
when
Ares.
it became that, but I believe around 2016, 2017. It's probably around the mark. They've been developing Ares itself for a minute. I think all in all, with the details we knew, though, like I said before earlier, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And you're right. This is definitely one of the best IMAX releases in a minute. Maybe not, I will say, obviously, one battle after another.
One rather enough there.
It blows it out of the water.
I just mean a movie that is purely
you have to see this in IMAX.
like one battle after another is good, not in in any format.
Well, no, I'd still say
Tron
that
would
IMAX
still.
is
I think this movie would still be good in any format, but IMAX enhances this
yeah.
to such a degree. Like I cannot stress enough. If you are going to see this, go see it in IMAX. Like you have to see it in IMAX. It'd be a shame if you didn't.
You'll definitely end up enjoying some aspects of it.
That's what I'm saying. Even
Especially the sound.
For the people that don't like this movie, I would find it so hard to believe that there wasn't one scene in it that they enjoyed, because the IMAX, it enhances it that much. And again, the music from Nine Inch Nails, it really was. They did a really good job here.
Yeah, no,
I would argue soundtrack of the entire year. I'm not even. I'm not kidding. I'd obviously have to really think about that.
I hope they get nominated for this, because I'd say it's definitely a lot of love poured into this. And as we said in the last video, like a lot of, I guess it definitely is this distinct album, but it harkens back to Carlos quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to the third act of this film. So let's get back into the story a little bit.
All right, we're gonna talk about some spoilers.
We're not gonna
here?
talk about direct, large spoilers for this film.
But if you don't want to know anything,
of course. If you don't want to know anything, don't listen to this portion. But as we said in our last video, they did end up returning to the original 1982 grid.
Yes.
A lot of references and Easter eggs in that bit. We won't delve into those. But how did you feel about where this took?
Well, my main thing that I felt watching that scene was, God, I wish Jeff Bridges didn't reveal that he was in this movie.
Yeah.
Because I literally was trying to watch it with that context. Like, wow, this probably really would have hit, like Flynn just showing up and giving Ares that guidance. I thought that was one of the best sequences in the movie, too. I really enjoyed him being in that grid. I thought it was cool.
I did really like that sequence, but I do wonder if people didn't know Jeff Bridges was in this movie. And obviously, yeah, listen, we want a lot more people to be seeing this movie. But there are people definitely talking about it, and I've seen, people really praising the Jeff Bridges appearance. But it makes me wonder if they didn't reveal it, would people think it was just cheap nostalgia bait in a way? Because, again, he's barely in this film.
He's barely in it, but I really, it was the exact, right when I saw his scene in the trailer, it was the exact way I figured they would implement him in the movie. And it didn't make me mad. Like, he is that kind of bridging, he is the glue of this franchise and always has been. Like, he should be in some he should be in some fashion, and I think they found a way for it to be
the story
both respectful and also work for the story.
The story obviously involves him quite a bit.
Yes,
obviously, it's not like you can have.
The movie begins with him. The movie begins with his famous line from Legacy. Again, the same line. So
yeah, part of it, yes. And I thought. I'm not going to say I loved, the opening, but I will say once it got to Ares, it was pretty solid.
Yeah, I was going to say, the actual opening scene had me a little worried, but then the actual opening sequence with the music, and when you finally see Ares, and then the title sequence, I was like, wow, this
I
could
agree.
be good.
I like the title sequence
The title sequence itself, when it said Tron Ares, I was really brought in, and I was ready.
So following that, though, very early on, we get a sense of, we see, obviously the movie starts with Dillinger, coding Ares in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And, that immediately, you start thinking of the original Tron and how the OG Dillinger talked to Master Control Program. This movie really, really harkens back to the original with that.
Yeah.
You know,
Dillinger relationship with the grid, yeah.
The new Dillinger, how he communicates with Ares, through, the real world and the grid, is a direct reference to the original film.
Mm-hmm.
And that, continues throughout the whole movie. There's just a lot of DNA from 82 in this film. There's things of, from Legacy as well, but I want to talk about that. Like, how did you feel with, really making this the Dillinger movie and pulling back to, the original relationship Dillinger had?
Well, kind of, as you said before, like, you felt like it was kind of a spinoff. Like, say if Tron was a bigger franchise, this would have been such a good, like, one-off movie in the franchise.
100%.
Like, it not only does it add to the lore and add to the kind of story that they've always been telling about AI in this franchise, it's a cool one-off about a character, about something we've never seen before, about a program who wants to live.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's hidden kind of details of that in Legacy, but it's not really explored that much. It really isn't. And I think it was the kind of appropriate jump for where they should explore the franchise next.
For them, again,
and I think it worked.
I was concerned, obviously we kind of figured that it wouldn't be a story about the ISOs and, all of them from Tron Legacy. And I will say, clear big spoiler here, this movie doesn't show that grid at all. Yeah. It's the only grid, actually, that's not featured in this film.
Because truthfully, it wouldn't really make sense, especially for the story they were telling here.
Exactly.
Because no one knows about that grid other than Sam and Cora. And unfortunately, Sam and Cora aren't in this movie. Luckily, they're mentioned in some fashion, and it is kind of revealed at the end that Ares is looking for them. Maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, we'll get a sequel.
Well, I gotta point this out. Yeah, this is gonna be the part of the video where we dump into large spoilers for the overall story.
I think I already just did, but yeah.
No, yeah, we're already there. I apologize, but one huge thing that I want to discuss is the potential fourth film. Yeah. Which, listen, we understand. It's probably not gonna happen. It's sad to say.
We're about 3 days into release of Ares, and just seeing the numbers, it's definitely gotten us worried, but. We're huge fans of this franchise, and we know there's huge fans of this franchise, so we're going to talk about the hypothetical fourth movie if it, ever were to happen.
So there's two potential setups here. The film ends with Ares now, I guess, sort of human. He's got the permanence code, and he's, permanently a resident on Earth now. We know that Cora from Legacy is the only other character, the only other program. Obviously, she's a little different. She's an ISO. But she's the only other program that's ever happened to.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't stray away from talking about her. We don't see her. But early on in the film, you see Ares researching Sam and Cora. And the film, it ends with him searching for them. It looks like he's found their last location. He's in Mexico City looking for them. And it ends with him driving off and him going to find them. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, if we get a fourth movie, what could that potentially look like? Maybe, we return to Flynn's grid. Yeah. Maybe you mentioned this to me, I think, yesterday when we were talking about this. Sam and Cora, maybe they've been maintaining that grid this entire time.
Yeah, because it's kind of
a
bit of a throwaway line in this movie, but it says Sam Flynn dropped out of NCOM for some personal reasons.
And
the only thing I could see it not, making me upset is that he was doing something on the other grid that was so dire that he needed his attention away from NCOM for that amount of time. That would make sense.
Yeah, this movie, it does that annoying trope of the character from the last movie is off doing something else. So I don't like that. But I will say I'm very happy they didn't stray away from at least talking about these characters and saying, yes, we acknowledge that they're important. If there's a fourth movie, we hope to see them return. Yeah, and I'm very excited about that.
Let's also talk quickly about the brief mid-credit scene that we do get in this movie.
Before I even get there, it's it's scary, It's funny. The movie ended and you're like, damn, I want to see more of that. And then you get a mid-credit scene where there's another interesting idea.
I'm going to say this is like my favorite Disney mid-credit scene in a long, long time, because they're kind of drawn out. I feel like I was honestly a little upset when one started in this, and I was like, oh. But you can tell they actually put some work into this one, and they're like, no, this is where we want this franchise to head, where we see Julian Dillinger, Evan Peters' character in this movie. He's finally in his grid. We see him in the digital world, and he looks behind him, and he sees a retro identity disc, an identity disc from the original Tron movie.
Yeah.
And right when he touches it, he starts to begin to become his father's character from that first movie.
Sark,
who is kind of the main physical antagonist of that movie. So
he's the protector of Master Control, and he's Tron's rival.
Who
in that Tron
movie.
Fights in the end of that film.
Also setting up him to be a huge kind of the reverse Ares in this movie, where he's the human from going into the digital world. Well, now
we have a human becoming a
yes,
program.
A human becoming a program.
It's very interesting in that scene too. I don't know if you caught this, but you can hear a little bit of Sark's original dialogue in there. There's like a little insert of like, I don't remember if it was a scream or something, but you hear Sark.
Yeah.
You can hear him as he starts
he's
becoming
Sark now.
Sark.
I personally think both the ways, for both the characters, Ares and Julian, I think really interesting. I think it's so much more to explore where both of these characters end up. There's just so much more room, I feel like.
Well, yeah, I would love to see, in some way, Kevin Flynn's grid battling Dillinger's now. He controls it from within now. I want to see, the battle there. It's just, how can we get to a sort of, right now they can't access it. But, there's got to be some way to figure out how we can set up a story for 4.
Yeah.
I mean, the seeds are there. And listen, we had 2 great setups here in the end of this film. And I think, it's debatable if we'll see Ares again. But
it's debatable if we'll see any type of
There
Tron
is
content
places
ever.
you can go with this character. I will say. There's plenty of things you could still do with Ares, especially now that he is now integrated into the real world.
Yeah.
That's never really been seen, especially if that's what people wanted to see with Korra. We didn't get to see it. So, if they make a 4th, it can't just be all Ares again, I will say. But I will say, I didn't hate Leto's performances so much where I'm like, I don't want to see Ares again,
Yeah.
But
I would actually go as far
disappear.
I mean, obviously, he's the lead of the movie, and this should be the case anyway, but I would say he is definitely the strongest character in this movie. Definitely as the person with the strongest arc and the most interesting stuff going on.
You'd hope he's the type of
because
character.
I'll throw it out there, and Greta Lee, kind of a bit of an exposition
she's just an
character, and that's
exposition
purely
machine.
what she's
The
here
whole
for.
I will say the whole
Which is
Encom
upsetting
crew was not
because
it.
I'd honestly say this movie has a really stacked cast. I'd say everyone's a really solid actor in this. No one was distractingly bad in this. If anything, the lines are distractingly bad. No one particularly is putting up a distractingly bad performance in this, though.
That's
That's
fair.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
there's
It's
a
taking me
bunch
away
of
from the
dialogue
movie.
that I was scratching my head and just be like,
Yeah, it's the
why?
dialogue itself. It's the script.
But you're
that
right.
you
There's
can't
no one
save.
in this that is just like really a bit like awful to watch. But yeah, I mean,
And there's definitely a couple people in this, even bigger actors, that were cut quite a bit. Because there's one scene with Cameron Monaghan who's just in it for 10 seconds and then he dies,
Clearly
which
that
is
was
just
cut.
like, there's no way he just filmed one scene and left. Like, he was definitely in more of
he
this
promoted
movie.
this film.
And he promoted it. Yeah, you don't do promotions for a movie unless you're in the movie for a substantial bit of time. So that was a little unfortunate, but I still really liked the direction of the story in this movie, and I as a longtime Tron fan, I really was was pretty satisfied with this.
Yeah, I will say overall, I think I'm more satisfied, especially seeing the fact that it isn't making too much money, and I mean, I wouldn't even say there's been negative reception to it because personally, maybe it's just my algorithm. When I go online, I see people's reaction to this film. It's been mostly positive.
I see a lot of Tron fans themselves are saying they really enjoyed this. They would have wished. All of us would have wished for a straight sequel to Legacy, but if you're not looking for it from that lens, this is a pretty solid Tron story.
We were really scared.
Yeah, I was very worried this movie was going to be terrible, and I can tell you, I was left pretty satisfied when the movie ended.
Yeah, it wasn't
genuinely.
I mean, it ended, and I wasn't like, damn, like that ruined Legacy, and like what could have happened. Like we still have a potential to make a great sequel to both of these films.
Yeah.
Like, it really leaves that open.
That's why it's unfortunate it waited 15 years for this semi kind of spin-off.
Well, the issue with Tron is that they even...
But it's
niche. That's the issue with Tron. It's that even if it wasn't Jared Leto, who knows if this would have made money?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because, listen, they projected, I think, $60 million. It probably made about $35 domestically. Maybe less, honestly, to be honest.
We got to pray this does very well
it's
in
just
some of the foreign markets.
China, save us. Save Tron.
Please, China, save Tron. I mean, I will say, though, for anyone listening, this movie is still out now. Please go see it in IMAX just for yourself. Like, you will take something out of this that you like. I promise.
Even if it's just that 9 Inch Nails score, if you're going to see this in IMAX, you will be satisfied by that alone. I guarantee it.
100%. But for us, luckily, as longtime Tron fans, we were left pretty satisfied with the overall product.
We want more.
And we want more.
We can say.
We want more. But thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.